My fiancée invited her ex to our engagement party, told me she doesn't owe me loyalty, then got mad when I walked out. She came crawling back after he dumped her, but I'd already moved on. Hi, Reddit. So my fiancé's ex just showed up at our engagement party. Turns out she invited him herself. Here's the full story. So I'm 31 male, a civil engineer. Been with my fiancée Naomi, 29 female, for 4 years. We got engaged 8 months ago and everything's been pretty solid. Or so I thought. We're planning this engagement party. Nothing too fancy, just family and friends at this nice venue downtown that she picked out. Everything was going smooth. We're sitting at my kitchen table going over the guest list. She's got her laptop out making the invitations. I'm double checking the head count for catering. Normal couple stuff, right? Then she just casually drops this on me. Oh, I'm inviting Dan too. I look up from my notes. Dan? Your ex Dan? She doesn't even pause typing. Yeah, he's important to me. He was there for me before you were. Then she gives me this look. You know the one where they're testing you? And goes, you're not insecure, right? Now listen, I'm not some jealous psycho. I don't go through her phone. I don't care if she has guy friends, whatever. But inviting your ex to your engagement party? That's different. That's like bringing a knife to a birthday party level of inappropriate. I kept my voice calm and said, I'm uncomfortable with that. Wrong answer, apparently. She rolls her eyes like I just asked her to explain quantum physics. This isn't your party to control, Ezra. I don't owe you loyalty. We're not even married yet. Stop acting like I belong to you. Dude, my fiancée, the woman I'm supposed to marry in 6 months, just told me she doesn't owe me loyalty. I sat there for a second trying to process that. Like, what do you even say to that? We're engaged. We've been together for 4 years. We have a joint bank account and she's on my lease. But she doesn't owe me loyalty because we're not married yet? I took a breath and just said, do whatever you think is appropriate. She smiled like she'd won some kind of victory and went back to her typing. Great. I knew you'd understand. Dan's really excited to catch up with everyone. The rest of the evening was weird as hell. She was texting someone constantly, I'm assuming Dan, and giggling at her phone every few minutes. Like, genuinely giggling. Not just smiling, but full-on teenage girl giggles. When I asked who she was talking to, she got defensive and said it was just work stuff. At 11 p.m. on a Saturday? Right. I went to bed early that night but couldn't sleep. Just kept thinking about that phrase. I don't owe you loyalty. Like, what kind of person says that to their fiancé? If you don't owe me loyalty now, when exactly does that kick in? After we sign the marriage certificate? After the honeymoon? Never? And here's the thing that really got me. She didn't even try to make me feel better about it. No, Dan and I are just friends now. Or, I want you to meet him so you'll see there's nothing there. Just straight up, I don't owe you loyalty and you can't control me. The next morning, she was all cheerful, making breakfast and talking about party decorations like nothing happened. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there wondering if I even know this person. I think we should do blue and silver for the colors, she said, flipping pancakes. Dan always said I looked good in blue. Dan always said, not, I think, or I look good in blue. Dan always said. I just nodded and drank my coffee. But something had shifted in me that night. When someone tells you they don't owe you loyalty, you better believe them. And you better start planning accordingly. My sister called me that Thursday and asked how wedding planning was going. I told her about the Dan situation, and she went quiet for a minute. Ezra, she said finally, that's not normal. You know that, right? I don't know anymore, I said. She made me feel like I was being controlling for not wanting her ex at our engagement party. You're not controlling. You're being a normal human being with normal boundaries. What's next? Is she going to invite him to the bachelor party? That made me laugh, but it wasn't funny. Because honestly, I wasn't sure she wouldn't suggest it. The weird part is, I wasn't even mad anymore. I was just tired. Tired of feeling like I was walking on eggshells. Tired of second-guessing myself. Tired of feeling like I was competing with a ghost. But here's the thing about being an engineer. You learn to think systematically. When you have a structural problem, you don't just slap some duct tape on it and hope for the best. You analyze the whole system, figure out where the weak points are, and either fix them or build around them. And right then, I had a problem that needed solving. I pulled up our joint wedding account first. 15 grand sitting there. Money we'd been saving for months. I'd put in 12,000, she'd contributed 3. The bank records were all right there in black and white. Seemed fair to take back what was mine, right? I initiated the transfer online. It would take a couple days to process, but that was fine. By the time she noticed, it'd be done. Then started canceling everything in my name. Venue, photographer, caterer, the works. By Saturday morning, day of the party, I had everything handled on my end. Bank accounts separated, major contracts dealt with, even found a decent apartment across town that was closer to my office anyway. She woke up that morning singing. Actually singing in the shower like she was in some romantic comedy. Meanwhile, I'm drinking coffee and running through my mental checklist one more time. I'm so excited for tonight, she said, practically bouncing into the kitchen in her robe. It's going to be absolutely perfect. Perfect. That's one way to put it. I'm sure it will be exactly what you're looking for, I said. She kissed my cheek, first time she'd done that in weeks, and started making breakfast, humming some song I didn't recognize. Probably something Dan had introduced her to. I finished my coffee and went to get dressed. Black suit, white shirt, simple tie. Nothing too fancy, but I wanted to look good for what was probably going to be my last public appearance as Naomi's fiancé. The venue looked nice when we got there. Everyone was having a good time, making small talk, congratulating us on the engagement. Normal party stuff. I was actually starting to relax a little. Then Dan showed up. This guy walks in like he owns the place. Tall, fake tan, wearing one of those shirts that tries too hard to look casual but probably costs more than my car payment. He's got this smug smile and he's carrying a gift bag. Not for both of us, just for Naomi. She practically runs over when she sees him. "Danny!" she squeals. And they hug for way too long. Like, awkwardly long. Long enough that people started noticing. He hands her the gift and she opens it right there in front of everyone. It's some necklace with a little pendant. She gets all teary-eyed looking at it. "You remember everything," she says, touching the pendant. "Of course I do, Nene," he says back. Nene. That's what he used to call her. She told me once that she hated that nickname. Guess that was another lie. The rest of the party, Dan's basically glued to her side. Hand on her back when they're talking to people, whispering jokes in her ear, bringing her drinks. Meanwhile, I'm standing around like some kind of party decoration. My mom comes up to me at one point. "Honey, who's that man with Naomi?" "Her ex-boyfriend," I say. Mom gives me this look. "Her ex? At your engagement party?" "Yeah, she said he was important to her." Mom doesn't say anything else, but I can see the wheels turning. She's not stupid. About an hour in, I'm getting myself a soda when I overhear Naomi's friends Jessica and Rachel talking by the bathroom. They don't see me around the corner. "I can't believe she actually invited him," Jessica says. "She told me she's not even sure she loves Ezra," Rachel whispers back. "She said Dan makes her feel alive again. What's she gonna do?" "I don't know, but she's been texting him nonstop for weeks. This whole engagement thing, I think she's having second thoughts." I stood there for a minute, letting that sink in. Then I walked back to the party, grabbed the microphone from the DJ, and waited for the room to quiet down. "Hey everyone, thanks for coming tonight," I said. The room got silent real quick. I just wanted to say something. I looked right at Naomi, who was standing next to Dan with this confused look on her face. "To Naomi, may you find exactly what you're looking for, because clearly it isn't me." Then I handed the mic back to the DJ and walked out. Didn't run, didn't make a scene, just walked. Behind me, I could hear people starting to murmur and Naomi calling my name. But I kept walking to my car, got in, and drove home. My phone started buzzing before I even got out of the parking lot. First a text, then another, then it just started ringing nonstop. I turned the ringer off and drove home in silence. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for a minute just breathing. The house looked the same as when we'd left 2 hours ago, but everything felt different now, like I was looking at someone else's life. I went inside and sat on my couch. My phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree on the coffee table. Texts, missed calls, voicemails, all from Naomi. I could see the previews scrolling by. "Where did you go? Ezra, please come back. Everyone's asking where you are. This is embarrassing." I turned the phone face down and went to change out of my suit. The voicemail started around 11 p.m. I could hear my phone vibrating against the coffee table from the bedroom, but I didn't check them. Whatever she had to say, I wasn't ready to hear it. I actually slept pretty well that night. Better than I had in weeks. Guess that's what happens when you stop pretending everything's fine. Sunday morning, I was making coffee when someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. Like the house was on fire or someone was dying. The sound echoed through the whole house and probably woke up my neighbors. I looked through the peephole and there was Naomi, still in her party dress from last night. Hair looking like she'd been running her hands through it all night. Makeup smeared under her eyes. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked like she'd been up crying since the moment I walked out. I opened the door, and she immediately pushed past me into the house, already yelling before she was fully inside. "Are you serious right now? Is this some kind of prank? So I invited my ex?" What's the big deal? You're really throwing everything away over that? She was pacing around my living room like a caged animal, gesturing wildly with her hands. Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying all night. The expensive dress she'd picked out special for the party was wrinkled and had what looked like wine stains on it. I leaned against the doorframe and just watched her fall apart. 4 years together. And this was the first time I was really seeing who she was underneath all the charm and polish. This frantic, desperate person who couldn't handle not getting her way. She kept ranting about how I'd embarrassed her, how people didn't know what to do after I left, how her parents were mortified. Like the real problem was that I'd made her look bad, not that she'd invited her ex to our engagement party and spent the night hanging all over him. I stayed calm and told her the truth, that she was the one who threw everything away when she made it clear who she really wanted. That just made her more frantic. She started doing that thing where people try to rewrite history in real time. Suddenly, Dan was just a friend. The constant texting was nothing. The gift was just being nice. All the stuff she'd been rubbing in my face for weeks was now being minimized like it never happened. But then I brought up what I'd overheard her friends saying, about her not being sure she loved me, about Dan making her feel alive again. Her whole face went white when she realized I'd heard that conversation. She tried to backtrack, said it was taken out of context, begged me to work through it, started crying those big, ugly sobs that make your whole body shake, the kind of crying that's more about panic than actual sadness. I asked her to just be honest for once. That's when the mask finally came off completely. She told me I'd regret this, that she and Dan were perfect together, that they always had been. Then she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Wait, I said. You need to come get your stuff. She turned around, and for a second I thought she might try to argue about that too. Fine, I'll be back tomorrow. Bring someone with you, I said. I don't want this turning into another scene. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I spent that evening going through her things. Just wanted to get it over with and move on with my life. Then I got to her desk drawer and found the photos. Pictures of her and Dan from when they were dating. Not just one or two old ones you might keep for memories. I'm talking about a whole stack of them. Dan with his arm around her at some beach. Naomi laughing at something he said at a restaurant. The two of them at what looked like a wedding, all dressed up and looking way too comfortable together. But that wasn't even the worst part. Under the photos were letters. Actual handwritten letters from Dan, postmarked from the last few months. While we were engaged and planning our wedding, I opened one and immediately wished I hadn't. I can't believe you're getting married, it started. I still think about what we had together. You were the one that got away, Nene. Another one. Seeing your engagement photos on social media messed me up for days. You look happy, but do you really love him the way you loved me? There were 5 of them total, getting progressively more intense. Dan basically begging her to reconsider, telling her she was making a mistake, that they belonged together, and she'd kept every single one. The last letter was dated 2 weeks before our engagement party. I know you invited me, and I know what that means. We both know this marriage isn't right for you. Let's talk when I see you. I sat there staring at these letters, realizing the whole Dan situation had been planned from the beginning. This wasn't some innocent friendship or coincidental reconnection. They'd been scheming behind my back for months. I threw everything into boxes and bags, let her sort through her own mess when she came to get it. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister asking if I was okay after whatever happened at the party. I told her I'd call her later and turned the phone off. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt like I could breathe. No more pretending not to notice the obvious. No more competing with a ghost for my own fiancé's attention. The funny thing was, I wasn't even mad anymore. I was relieved. Better to find out who someone really is before you marry them than after. And Naomi had just shown me exactly who she was. Someone who thought loyalty was optional, who would rather chase excitement than build something stable, who would throw away 4 years the moment something shinier came along. I spent the rest of Sunday doing normal stuff. Around dinner time, I finally listened to her voicemails. 12 of them, starting angry and getting progressively more desperate as the night went on. The last one was from around 6 a.m., her voice all hoarse and shaky, begging me to call her back so we could fix this. But there wasn't anything to fix. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be with you. You can't negotiate your way back into someone's heart when they've already given it to someone else. I deleted all the messages and went back to my normal Sunday evening routine. Best decision I ever made. Monday morning, I woke up at my normal time, made coffee, and went to work like nothing had happened. Felt weird driving to the office knowing I was technically single again, but also kind of freeing. No more texts asking when I'd be home, no more having to check in about dinner plans, no more walking on eggshells. My coworkers didn't know about the engagement party disaster yet, so it was just a normal day. Around 6 p.m., she showed up with her dad. Poor guy looked embarrassed as hell, like he knew exactly what his daughter had done and didn't approve. He'd always been decent to me, worked construction for 30 years, straightforward guy who didn't put up with nonsense. Ezra, he said when I opened the door, sorry about all this. It's fine. Her stuff's in boxes by the door. It took about 20 minutes to load everything into his truck. I didn't mention the letters or photos. Figured she'd find them when she unpacked, and realized I knew exactly how deep her betrayal went. Naomi didn't say a word the whole time, just directed her dad where to put things. When they were done, she walked back to the door. This is really it? She asked. You're not going to change your mind? This is really it. She looked like she might cry again, but her dad was already in the truck waiting. She got in without another word, and they drove. The following week, things started getting interesting. Tuesday morning, I was at my desk when I got a call from an unknown number. Ezra, this is Patricia, Naomi's mom. I almost hung up, but Patricia had always been decent to me. Nice lady, taught middle school for 30 years before retiring. Not her fault her daughter turned out to be a train wreck. I wanted to call and apologize for what happened at your party, and for how Naomi's been behaving. I wasn't expecting that. You don't need to apologize for her choices. Yes, I do. We raised her better than that. What she did was completely inappropriate, and frankly, embarrassing for our whole family. She went on to tell me that she'd had a long talk with Naomi about respect and commitment, and how you don't invite your ex to your engagement party. Apparently, it hadn't gone well. She kept saying you were being controlling and that Dan was just a friend. But I've been married for 35 years, Ezra. I know what it looks like when someone's heart isn't fully committed. Before we hung up, she said something that stuck with me. You didn't deserve any of that. She ruined the best thing she ever had. That same week, I started hearing things through mutual friends. Nothing dramatic, just the usual gossip that spreads when people break up publicly. Most of it was people asking what happened, since I'd left pretty abruptly and Naomi wasn't giving anyone straight answers. My friend James, who'd been at the party, texted me Thursday night. Dude, that was wild on Saturday. Naomi spent the rest of the night crying, and Dan just disappeared. What's the real story? I gave him the basics without getting into all the personal stuff. He responded with, wow, that's rough. But honestly, the whole Dan thing was weird to watch. Everyone was talking about it. Turns out I wasn't the only one who thought the whole situation was inappropriate. Multiple people had commented to each other about how strange it was that her ex was there, how he was acting way too familiar with her, how uncomfortable it made everyone feel. The really interesting news came Friday afternoon. My sister called me laughing. You need to hear this, she said. Jessica just texted me. Dan dumped Naomi yesterday. I almost choked on my coffee. What? Apparently he told her he wasn't looking for anything serious, and that maybe they could hang out sometime. Classic player move. So let me get this straight. Naomi threw away a 4-year relationship and engagement for a guy who wasn't even interested in dating her. She'd been building up this whole fantasy in her head about getting back together with Dan, and he was just messing with her for fun. According to Jessica, Naomi's been calling in sick to work and crying constantly. Keeps saying she made a huge mistake. I felt nothing. Maybe I should have felt bad for her, or vindicated, or angry. But mostly I just felt tired. Like this whole drama was finally over, and I could move on with my life. Meanwhile, the gossip mill kept churning. Word was getting around about what had happened at the engagement party, and apparently it wasn't reflecting well on Naomi's professional reputation. She worked in PR, where image and relationships matter a lot. Having your engagement fall apart publicly because you invited your ex doesn't exactly scream good judgment to potential clients. I heard through James, who knew someone at her company, that she'd lost 2 major clients who decided they didn't want to work with someone whose personal life was such a mess. Her boss had also quietly moved her to a smaller team, handling less important accounts. Turns out being a public relations rep who can't handle her own public relations is kind of a career liability. Who would have thought? I spent that weekend apartment hunting and found a decent 1-bedroom place about 10 minutes closer to work. The rent was a little higher than what I'd been paying, but with the promotion, I could easily afford it. Sunday evening, I was packing up some of my stuff when I got a text from an unknown number. At first, I thought it might be Naomi trying to reach me from a different phone, but it turned out to be Dan. Hey man, sorry about everything that went down. Naomi told me you guys broke up. Didn't mean for things to get complicated. I stared at that text for a minute. This guy had spent weeks trying to break up my engagement, succeeded, then dumped my ex-fiancée when he got what he wanted. And now he was apologizing like it was all just some innocent misunderstanding. I deleted the message without responding. Some people aren't worth the energy it takes to tell them what you really think. 2 months after the engagement party, I was settled into my new apartment and honestly loving life. I'd been hitting the gym regularly for the first time in years. Nothing crazy, just basic lifting and cardio 3 times a week. Turns out when you're not spending every evening walking on eggshells around your partner, you have time for things like taking care of yourself. I wasn't dating anyone, wasn't really looking either. After 4 years with someone who turned out to be completely different than I thought, I was enjoying just being by myself for a while, learning what I actually liked to do when I wasn't constantly negotiating with someone else about everything. Life was simple, predictable, drama-free. I should have known it wouldn't last. Tuesday evening in late November, I was getting home from the gym when I saw a familiar car parked in the visitors section of my apartment complex. Silver Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper from when Naomi had backed into a mailbox 2 years ago. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard from her in over a month, not since those desperate voicemails the week after the party. I grabbed my gym bag and headed for the elevator, hoping she hadn't seen me. No such luck. As soon as I hit the call button, I heard her voice behind me calling my name. I turned around. She looked different, thinner, like she hadn't been eating much. Dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, cut in one of those dramatic styles women get when they're trying to reinvent themselves after a breakup. She asked if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I let her come up to my apartment. She looked around like she was seeing a museum exhibit, commenting on how nice the place was. I stayed standing while she sat down on my couch without being invited. The whole performance was predictable. She'd made a huge mistake, the biggest of her life. Dan had used her, never wanted a relationship, just wanted to see if he could break us up. When he succeeded, he got bored and moved on to someone else. She started crying. Not the angry tears from that morning at my old house, but the quiet, defeated kind that made her whole body slump. She threw away everything good in her life for someone who didn't even care about her. 4 years together, our future, all our plans, gone for nothing. Now she wanted to make it right. We could work through this, couldn't we? We were good together. We were happy. We were planning a wedding for crying out loud. I reminded her about the loyalty comment, about her telling me Dan was better than me, about her choosing him publicly in front of everyone who mattered to us. Each point made her flinch like I was hitting her with a physical blow. She had an excuse for everything. She was confused, Dan was in her head, she was angry and lashing out. People make mistakes. That's what love was supposed to be about. Forgiveness and second chances. I looked at her sitting there on my couch, crying over the consequences of her own choices, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no urge to comfort her or make her feel better. Just emptiness where all those feelings used to be. The whole thing was pathetic, really. She'd only figured out I was the love of her life after her first choice kicked her to the curb. Now she wanted to come back to the backup plan, go to counseling, do whatever it took to fix things. When I told her no, she looked genuinely shocked, like she couldn't believe I wouldn't take her back after everything she'd put me through. She tried the guilt trip. 4 years together and I wouldn't even try to work things out? I explained that there was nothing to work out. She'd shown me who she really was, and I believed her. She didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. A series of choices, actually. And now she got to live with the consequences. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then turned back with one final attempt at manipulation. I was going to regret this, she said. She was the best thing that ever happened to me. No, I told her as I opened the door. You leaving me was the best thing that ever happened to me. She left without another word. I closed the door, locked it, and went back to my normal Tuesday evening routine. Made dinner, watched the news, went to bed at a reasonable hour. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt completely at peace with my decision. There's something liberating about having someone show their true colors so clearly that you never have to wonder what if about the relationship. The funny part was how obvious her game plan had been. Wait for me to get over the initial hurt, then show up looking vulnerable and remorseful, expecting me to welcome her back with open arms. Like I was some kind of emotional doormat who'd just been waiting around for her to realize her mistake. But I wasn't the same guy she'd left 2 months ago. That guy might have taken her back, might have convinced himself that everyone deserves a second chance, might have been grateful just to have someone familiar in his life again. This guy knew better. This guy had learned that when someone shows you they think loyalty is optional, you believe them, and you don't give them another chance to prove it again. I spent the next few days wondering if she'd try again, show up at my office, send letters, get mutual friends to plead her case. But nothing came. Maybe she finally understood that some bridges can't be rebuilt once you burn them down. Or maybe she just found someone else to play backup plan for her next relationship disaster. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. The best part was realizing I didn't miss her at all. I missed the idea of having a partner, sure, but I didn't miss her specifically. What I had now was better. Peace, stability, the freedom to build my life exactly the way I wanted it. And if someone came along who actually appreciated that life and wanted to be part of it, great. But I wasn't settling for less ever again. Some lessons are worth learning the hard way. 6 months after the engagement party disaster, I was doing better than I'd ever been. Work was going great. The promotion had led to even bigger projects. And I was building a reputation as someone who could handle complex structural challenges. And I met someone. Her name's Tiffany, who worked as a teacher at the elementary school near my office. We'd met at a coffee shop when she was grading papers, and I was working on some project plans during lunch. She seemed normal. No drama, no ex-boyfriend baggage, just a regular person who liked movies and hiking and didn't feel the need to test my boundaries every 5 minutes. Saturday afternoon, we were at the big supermarket downtown. We were in the pasta aisle when I saw her. Naomi, standing about 20 feet away, holding a basket and talking to some guy I didn't recognize. Tall, decent looking, wearing an expensive jacket that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. My first instinct was to turn around and go the other way. I didn't need this drama in my life, and I definitely didn't want Tiffany getting dragged into whatever scene Naomi might try to create. But it was too late. She'd already spotted me. I steered the cart toward a different shelf, hoping Naomi would just mind her own business. No such luck. She called my name across the aisle like we were old friends, then walked over with her new guy trailing behind, looking confused about why they were approaching strangers. Naomi looked Tiffany up and down and made some comment about how I'd already met someone, that it didn't take long. I introduced them politely, but Naomi ignored Tiffany completely. Then she launched into her whole performance. She'd met someone too, this guy Simon who was standing behind her, looking increasingly uncomfortable. But she couldn't just leave it at that. I forgot to introduce you properly, Simon, she said with that sharp edge I remembered from our worst fights. This is my ex, Ezra. We used to date. Well, we were going to get married until he decided to throw everything away, just because he's an insecure person who can't handle his girlfriend having male friends. The grocery store suddenly felt very quiet. Tiffany's hand found mine and squeezed gently. Not possessive, just supportive. Simon looked from Naomi to me and back again, clearly having no idea what he'd walked into. When I mentioned that she'd invited her ex to our engagement party and spent the night hanging all over him, Simon's expression changed completely. "What is wrong with you?" he asked Naomi. "You're actually insane." He walked away without another word, leaving his basket right there in the middle of the aisle. We could see him through the store windows, getting into his car and driving off. Naomi stood there for a second, watching him leave. Then she turned back to me with tears starting to form in her eyes. "Well, you're happy now, aren't you, Ezra?" I looked at this woman who'd been the center of my world for 4 years, who I'd planned to marry and have kids with and grow old with, who'd thrown it all away for a guy who dumped her the second he got what he wanted. And now she'd just sabotaged another relationship because she couldn't handle seeing me move on. "I'm not happy or unhappy about what just happened," I said. "That's between you and him. You turned him against me." I told him the truth. What he did with that information was his choice. Tiffany tugged gently on my arm. "Maybe we should go," she said quietly. As we walked toward the checkout, I could hear Naomi behind us, but I didn't turn around. Whatever else she had to say, it wasn't my problem anymore. "So," Tiffany said as we loaded our groceries onto the conveyor belt, "that was your ex." "That was her. She seems intense." I laughed. "That's one word for it. Do you want to talk about it?" I thought about that as we waited in line. Did I want to rehash the whole story? Explain about Dan and the engagement party and all the drama that had led to this moment? "Not really," I said. "It's old news. Ancient history." As we walked to the car, I realized something had shifted. For months, the idea of running into Naomi had been this thing I dreaded. Some part of me had been worried about how I'd react, whether I'd feel anything, whether it would bring back all the hurt and anger from when everything fell apart. But now that it had happened, I felt nothing. She was just some person I used to know who couldn't handle seeing me happy. Her problems weren't my problems anymore. Driving home, I realized this was probably the last time I'd ever see Naomi. She'd shown Simon exactly who she was in about 30 seconds, and he'd made the smart choice. I didn't feel bad for her. She'd made her bed, and now she got to lie in it. The best part was that Tiffany had seen the whole thing and hadn't run screaming. If anything, she seemed more interested in getting to know me better. Turns out some people actually appreciate stability and honesty in a relationship. Who would have thought? The moral of this whole story? When someone shows you they don't think they owe you loyalty, believe them. And then show them what it looks like when you don't owe them your future. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well and not looking back.